So let's talk some more about foraging and plants and growing your own food. So I was happy to see that quite a few comrades were enthusiastic about sharing their tips on how to grow food and plants and whatnot. And I just wanted to clarify that I am not at all a believer into being an independent landowner. I know it is not a solution, and this fantasy of running away from the evil civilization is not at all something that I personally promote or believe in or want to take part in. But I have been looking into more ways of becoming less dependent on the capitalist systems, just because I am so exhausted and so disillusioned and disheartened by what is happening around me. And I know that a lot of people nowadays feel the same way. I see a lot of people making content about, living independently and living off the grid. I personally, as a communist, as a Marxist-Leninist, I don't believe in, those libertarian values of sticking it to the man and not paying taxes. And I want to build a society where everyone is accommodated, for everyone's needs are met, and everyone works towards a greater good for everyone else. I don't believe in living on your own self-sufficiently in the forest, even though I agree that this is an attractive dream, especially in the modern time, because we are so alienated from ourselves and from nature that sometimes we may go to this extreme of just wanting to live on our own in a shack in the woods. And I'm not gonna lie, I used to entertain this idea of living on my own in the shack in the woods, but I've abandoned it quite some time ago, because as I think I shared before, I think it would be extremely boring and very hard. And I've also seen some experiments. There were some reconstructionists, or I don't know how you call them, people who kind of reconstruct the conditions of the past and live on their own in the wilderness, only having access to technology of 14th century. And it was incredibly difficult. It's like you needed to do so much work just to stay alive. You needed to wake up at dawn, and and you highly dependent on the weather, and you were either too cold or too hot all the time, and your entire day would revolve around just feeding yourself and making sure you stay warm or stay cool depending on the season. And yeah, of course, this is not something that we as humans have evolved to do. We have evolved to live in communities where everybody does a little bit of everything, and then generally that means less labor for everyone. So this is something I just wanted to quickly clarify. But talking more about plants and growing your own food, my husband and I had some experiences in the past growing some plants in our apartment, and we grew some cherry tomatoes, and they were delicious and we ate them, but they were the type of plant that you have to plant yearly, so we decided against it. It was kind of hard to maintain, and of course those cherry tomatoes were selectively bred, or I don't know whether we can use this kind of vocabulary about plants, but we also grew arugula and onions, and green onions and other little plants like this, little herbs. They are much easier to maintain, and I think some of you might have seen some of the plants when I used to film in our living room, and some plants do look kind of sad because our plants actually have been infested with some bugs for quite a while, and we've tried multiple things. My husband has been trying all kinds of remedies, folk remedies and commercial remedies, and unfortunately some of our plants died, and the great avocado tree that we grew out of the avocado seed, you used to see it in the background. It was an actual tree. It was very tall. It also died a few years ago during the pandemic. It survived quite a few trials and tribulations. We moved and we carried it with us, and it survived, but then it ended up dying anyway. It was maybe 4 years old when it died. But yeah, avocado trees of course are not something that we can easily grow in a climate of ours. So our climate is pretty continental. Our winters are pretty mild in here in the Almaty area, but they can still be pretty harsh. We sometimes get a lot of snow, and sometimes it gets pretty cold, but overall our climate is pretty mild. It does get very hot in the summers, and we get dry heat. We are very much water deprived. This is my biggest concern for the coming future, that we are not going to have much access to water, and that scares me the most personally. But yeah, we are looking into possibly, hopefully, fingers and toes crossed, moving to a house of our own and getting a little plot of land to grow some plants. And we've got a lot of plants, and we are so excited even thinking about the possibility of growing food. But and of course, we realize that it's not going to be possible to completely live off of the land, because you do need quite a lot of land in order to sustain even a small family. But we are very excited to just grow plants and not feel like we have to buy everything, especially bearing in mind how expensive fruits and vegetables are nowadays. It's ridiculous. And in our region, we are lucky that we are surrounded by a lot of countries that have a lot of, plants available. Like Uzbekistan is so great at providing us with all kinds of fruits and vegetables. But nonetheless, the prices of fruits and vegetables have been skyrocketing, and like we can't afford buying a lot of those. Like we of course can buy a little bit, but we can't afford to eat like an abundance of fruits and vegetables and berries like we used to when we were children. And that really makes me so sad, because one of my favorite foods is berries. Like I'm a very berry person. I love strawberries and raspberries and cherries, and we used to get them all the time. Like every summer, every season, we would get like crates upon crates of those. And also we got some from our grandparents' dacha when they were alive. We don't have this dacha anymore. My grandparents passed quite some time ago, and we got rid of the land. I don't know what my parents did to it, but we don't have it anymore, which is a pity. I wish I could go back in time, honestly, because when I was a kid, I used to like help out a little bit. This dacha, I wasn't very excited back then to do that, but I do remember very vividly picking, berries and helping with a little bit with fruit trees and all kinds of food sources. And we got quite a lot of food from this little plot of land, especially fruits and vegetables, like simple vegetables. So this is what my husband and I are kind of planning to do, hopefully. And yeah, but living sustainably off of your own land is not going to happen, and it's not a bad thing, actually. It's a good thing that we depend on each other, and I wish we were able to all access land and all grow food together so that nobody would have to do backbreaking labor. And I am personally very much interested in learning from the Native American peoples, because they have a lot to tell us about, food forests and permaculture and whatnot, and how to be the stewards of the land and not just the consumers. And I know that a lot of the peoples of my land are similar, and I am interested in learning more of their history as well. But it's hard to find, because a lot of this history is pure propaganda about how great such and such tribes were and how they were colonized by the Russians, which, Russian Empire did colonize our land, but the Soviet period was not colonization. Okay, so if you're going to argue with this, you're not welcome here. I don't want to talk to you. So, and there is a lot of interesting history and a lot of memories of all kinds of peoples here, so I'm interested in learning more of it. And yeah, let's keep this conversation going. I am very interested in learning all of your tips and tricks about how to grow plants, and yeah, let's keep talking about this. And I'm hoping that this is going to inspire us for more mutual aid efforts and for more community building, because this is what we need desperately at the time, and may also instill some revolutionary optimism in us, because then we will be spending time doing something productive, actually, instead of arguing on the internet. So I hope you have a great day, and